Hi, everyone, and welcome back for another episode of Malice in the Mitten. I'm your host, Tracy Preston, along with my bestie, Christine Mulligan. Hey, Christine.
Hey, Trace. Hey, everybody. What's going on today? What are we getting into? What are you telling me about?
Today's story was researched and written by Rebecca Hiers. And when I say researched, this woman dug and dug and dug and dug. She's a wild woman, and she did this all to make sure that we had a really good story today. So I want to say thank you, Rebecca. In Season 9, Episode 4, we brought you the story of Nellie Griffin, an orphan girl, adopted and murdered by the man that adopted her. But today, we will take a look at the way some orphans came to Michigan and why. So come with us as we climb aboard the orphan train. So let's get into it. This is Season 9, Episode 7, Climb Aboard the Orphan Trains of Michigan. The cities on the East Coast were very overcrowded in the 1850s. The crowded conditions, disease epidemics, poor sanitation, and no job safety meant high adult deaths. The potato famine had hit the country of Ireland hard in the mid-1800s. It caused massive suffering by way of disease and hunger for the country. In search of a better life, many families came to America, but it wasn't just the Irish coming. Many came from other countries in search of a better life. But when they arrived, they didn't always find it better. Tenement housing was a thing, and that refers to multi-occupancy residential buildings that typically consist of several flats or apartments, which often shared the same entrance stairways. This type of housing was built especially for poor people. There was no indoor plumbing, little natural light, and poor airflow, which was a perfect breeding ground for disease. Their living space was cramped, with a family of 10 often living in, get this, a 325-foot living space. Now, to put that into perspective, today's average modern walk-in closet is 65 to 100 square feet. So just imagine 10 people crammed into a room the size of roughly 3 to 4 walk-in closets. This space held a kitchen and a room to sleep.
Yeah, that's bonkers. How do you even fit 10 bodies in 300 square feet? Like, lay them down. Like, did they ever sleep simultaneously?
They must have all piled on top of each other like back in the days of cavemen.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah.
It is bonkers to think about, but that is what they did.
Yeah.
And I can't even fathom.
I can't either. Now, their bathrooms were outside in the yard. There was no running water, and water usually came from a shared community pump out in the yard as well. A community sink was on the first floor of the building or from fire hydrants in the street, and those were shared by dozens of people. That gives you a whole new appreciation for what we've got.
Oh, well, no doubt. I mean, that was like really rough living.
Yeah, it was.
Eyewitness survives.
Nope, not a princess like you. Hell no.
No, ma'am.
You need your things, all the things. I get it.
No, I don't need all the things, but I need, like running water and, more than 5 cubic feet for myself.
Yeah, and no pooping in the yard.
Yeah, no pooping in the yard. That's for the dogs.
Exactly. Now, many immigrants were low-skilled individuals taking the dangerous menial jobs. Children were often forced out of school to work in factories and mines to help care financially for their families. Factory conditions for safety were abominable, as evidenced by the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire, which killed 146 female immigrant workers when a fire broke out, and the exits were locked shut. Hours were long and pay was low. In 1911, one worker made $16.60 for a 2-week pay period, in which she worked 166 hours. That's nuts.
That is crazy. But that was back in the day. We were just getting rid of this whole slavery thing, right?
Yeah, I think this is like the industrial period, no?
Yeah, I think so. I don't really know the timelines, forgive me, because I try to not pay too much attention to the detail of when humans were disgusting. But back in the day, like, that's how we used to treat workers. Like, they were basically just minimally paid slaves.
Yeah.
I mean, you just said that they locked them in. Once they came into work, they locked them in there.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy.
Yeah, you're not going home.
Why did they do that?
Because they had quotas, damn it, and you're not going home until it's done. I guess. I'm just spitballing, but that's all I can come up with.
Atrocious.
Yeah.
Atrocious that humans were treated like they're herded like cattle and literally kept in pens. Mm-hmm. That's basically what you're telling me.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Now, now for those amount of hours worked and the money that they were being paid, that translates to roughly $545 in today's money. And if we break that down even further, that comes to $3.25 an hour in today's money. Bonkers. Yeah. Now, of course, that amount would have been much lower in the 1850s.
But then again, the cost of living back then, that wasn't horrible. At least they were able to get a place for themselves. Because, I don't know, like back in 1910, wasn't it like $5 for a month of rent?
Could have been.
Yeah, I think it was something insanely like unfathomable for my brain. It was something like that. I know it was like crazy.
Yeah. Well, while I'm reading the next part, why don't you Google that up? See where we're at. See if we're right. Okay. Now, due to the living and sanitation conditions, epidemics like cholera, tuberculosis, and typhus were rampant. 40% of children that were living in tenements died before the age of 5. An epidemic of cholera in the tenements killed approximately 5,000 people in 1849, and a second epidemic killed over 2,000 in 1854. Conditions in the big East Coast cities were bad. Now, the combination of poor sanitation, disease, and low wages often caused the parents to die or become disabled and unable to care for their children. Having left their families behind when they immigrated to the United States meant that they didn't have support from grandparents, aunts, or uncles when something happened. There were no social organizations as we have today to assist with rent or food. The orphanages were full, and the kids were left to roam the streets. Orphanages at the time held 200 to 2,000 children, and as you can imagine, that prohibited quality care. In 1854, New York City alone had an estimated, get this, 30,000 orphan children running in the streets. Children as young as 10, sometimes younger, and they were called street Arabs. Now, I hate that name, but that's what it was. They formed gangs for protection and stole items from stores and people just to survive. Some children sold newspapers and rags to make money during the day, and these children slept in corners, on stairs, and in doorways at night. Now, I looked that up, and my heart's just absolutely broken. Like, there's a little girl who cannot be more than 7, all ragged, filthy, sitting on the corner of a stoop holding a baby.
Yeah, those old-timey pictures of tenement housing and people that live there and around there, they really are sad.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, I did Google up real quick after you were talking about the whole money, because you know how that just blows my mind.
Yeah.
Inflation, the rate of inflation in the 19th century, 1900s just blows my mind.
Yeah.
But in 1910, 1911, on average, somebody would make $3 to $5 a week, and their rent was $4 to $7 for the month.
Wow. Okay.
They were economically, they were doing okay if they made their rent in 1 week. Mm-hmm. So they still had enough to provide. But you're also talking about the lifestyle that they're living.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't great, but they were making ends meet at least.
Right.
so to speak.
Right. So that was kind of the average, which kind of sounds like today, right? I know one of my paychecks goes for my mortgage and a few other things. Food, clothes, another bill or two. So I guess it kind of equals out, but still.
Yeah, it's just astronomical numbers nowadays.
Yeah, it is.
Bonkers.
It is. All right. While the East Coast was suffering from overcrowding, the Midwest states had the opposite problem. The Louisiana Purchase happened in 1803, opening the land from present-day Missouri to Colorado. People began to migrate west, but oftentimes, disease and harsh living conditions would incapacitate family members, and when they arrived to their new place to live, they needed help to work the land. Seeing two needs, a solution was born. The Children's Aid Society was founded in 1853 by Charles Brace. He was a minister that worked in the tenement sections of town with the poorest of the poor. Seeing the children on the street and that there was no help for them, he and other like-minded men opened the CAS and the goal of educating, housing, and helping the children. In 1854, the idea of an orphan train was born. And in September of 1854, the first train left New York headed for Dowagiac, Michigan, and that is in the county of Cass.
It's just so weird for you to be telling me this, and I'm hearing you, and you're telling me oh, well, at least we had nothing for the kids, so now we have a great idea to utilize them and to also give them a shot at a better life. I get the goodness in the idea, but I can't help but think, oh, so free child slavery. They were just taking orphan kids and shipping them off to go work for somebody else for free, for room and board.
Mm-hmm.
They were going to work into their bones for room and board. I feel like this was peril. This was just littered with perils for these children.
Yeah. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I never knew about any of this. Ever. Not even a blip of a conversation have I ever heard anybody talk about this before. So
crazy. It's
an eye-opener. Now, Dowagiac, Michigan is on the border of Michigan and Indiana on the west side of the state. It's the second county in from the west. Just to give you an idea of where it's located. Now, the train held 46 boys hoping to find homes and a chance at a better life. The boys all found homes, and more trains would follow. Running from 1854 until 1929, over, get this number, 250,000 children would be rehomed. Eventually, the trains would head south also. Seeing the success of the first trains, other children's organizations developed train riding programs. The New York Founding Hospital, a Catholic organization, focused on placing children in Catholic homes in the West. Families were approved prior to the child leaving New York. Families were assigned a number, and that number was pinned or sewn into the child's shirt. A card with the child's information and number was mailed to the prospective family. When they arrived at the stations, the cards were shown to the sisters supervising the children, and the numbers were matched, and the children went with their new families. The only qualification was that the family was Catholic and had to be approved by a committee. Now, many of the children were infants and younger children, so their trains were often called baby trains. They ran their trains from 1875 until 1919. The New York Juvenile Asylum was founded in 1851 to assist children that had been found homeless or arrested for petty crimes. At the time, there were no jails for children. Well, that's a good thing. And children caught stealing were placed with adults in an adult prison. Now that right there scares the hell out of me. And we brought that up in our show last week.
That's bonkers too. Yeah.
Even children as young as 5 years old. Feeling that the situation was a detriment, they took the children that would have ended up in jail. The children were given education, attending school for 6 hours a day as a referendum from their evil ways was their goal. Evil ways? What? These kids were on the streets just trying to survive. How's that evil?
Yeah, well, they were an inconvenience to polite society, I suppose.
Right.
Making it evil.
Now, their approach to the orphan trains was a bit different than the other groups. These children were sent mainly to Indiana and Illinois as indentured servants, where they would work for a number of years for a family, then be given their freedom. Can we just call this slavery, just like you said? Now get this. Approximately 6,000 children were sent out by this group. 6,000. The American Friendless Society was founded in 1839 as a refuge for poor women and children. Now, in the beginning, they sent their children one-to-one instead of in a group together. One child at a time with one adult to watch over them. That's what the one-to-one means. Mostly sending their children to New England states that didn't start to send children west until the late 1850s. They still continued the one-to-one ratio, with each child knowing what family they would go to. While this may sound all warm and fuzzy, it wasn't always for the children. Not all agencies matched a child with a family before leaving New York. While many of the children on the trains were actual orphans, some were not. Perhaps a parent had lost their job and their parents could no longer afford to feed and house them. Often those children were placed in orphanages with a promise to return when things improved financially. When the parents got a new job and were ready to put their families back together, their children were gone. There were no permission slips or court to end custody. Quote, "I just finished eating and this matron came by and tapped us along the head. You're going to Texas, and you're going to Texas." Well, some of the kids, clapped and laughed, and when she came to me, I looked up. I said, "I can't go. I'm not an orphan. My mother's still living. She's in the hospital right here in New York."
You are going to Texas.
No use in arguing. And that is a statement from an orphan train rider named Haziel Latimer. Oftentimes, the children were not told they were going away until the night before they left, or in some cases, the day of departure. There was no time to prepare themselves, no time to say goodbye to friends or siblings that weren't coming. They would get a bath, their hair would be cut if needed, or placed nicely if girls like maybe pigtails or braids, and they would get new clothing. Then they were loaded aboard the waiting train. As the train left the station and headed out, for many children raised in a crowded city, it would be their first time to see open fields, forest and farm animals. It must have been overwhelming to some of them. Usually, there were only 1 to 2 adults, or as they were called, agents, to look after 25 to 35 children on the train, and they were aged 3 to 17. How can one agent watch after all those kids, especially the young ones? 3 years old? 3 years old, they're running around like crazy.
Just like teachers. That's what teachers would do too. Back in the day, they'd have 45 kids of all different ages, and they'd be a teacher in a little schoolhouse.
That's true. The one-room schoolhouse. You're right. But did they have 3-year-olds in there? That's not school age.
Not in the school. No. Yeah, that's not school age. I wouldn't imagine until 4 or 6 at least.
Yeah, crazy. Now, prior to arrival at their city, this is going to make you nuts, flyers would be sent to the cities in which the trains would stop, advertising their upcoming arrival. They would list the dates and times the orphan trains would be coming. Some flyers would have photos and brief descriptions of the children. The flyers also basically advertised if the trains contained boys or girls. The welcoming city would create a board of citizens to approve these adoptions. Chosen parents were forced to sign an agreement promising good treatment of the children. Sadly, however, and I know you're not going to be surprised, there were no follow-ups to see if this was done in most cases. Interested parents would come to the appointed place to look over the children. When the trains arrived in town, the children were taken to the local opera house, Grange Hall, church, or someplace large enough to showcase them. Standing in front of a crowd of adults, they were looked over by the crowd of prospective parents. Sometimes the children had to show their legs. Their teeth and eyes were inspected to ensure they were healthy. If a farmer needed farm hands, muscles might be felt to show they were strong enough to work. If a family just wanted one child or a child of a certain sex, and there were siblings of the opposite sex, those children were separated. Most never saw each other again. Sometimes they were forced to sing and dance for prospective families. Some spoke different languages than their adoptive families, leading to communication issues. The unclaimed children were loaded back on the train, taken to the next town to repeat the process over and over again. Now, if a child was never chosen, they would ride that train all the way back to New York to resume life in the orphanages there. Often the placement didn't work out and the child ran away or was placed with another family. Some children would go through multiple families until they were either aged out or found a forever home. Now, this next quote is from one of the children from the orphan train, and her name is Christina Baker Klein.
I learned long ago that loss is not only probable, but inevitable. I know what it means to lose everything, to let go of one life and find another. And now I feel, with a strange, deep certainty, that it must be my lot in life to be taught that lesson over and over again.
Oh my God, that's heartbreaking.
Just listening to this whole story, all I'm imagining is all of those many, many broken spirits. Even the ones that got adopted, that wasn't always a good thing. Like you said, even especially if they were siblings and they were on the train together and then they went to 2 different cities in 2 different states and never saw each other again. It's just trauma. Like, that's all I'm hearing. It's super sad.
Yeah. And I mean, how hard is it to lose your parents and then all you have left are your siblings and then those are ripped from you? I mean, these children are our future.
Wow. We didn't really give a shit about them back then, did we?
No, we didn't.
Ugh.
Treated like farm animals.
The whole situation sounds like you go into the 4-H thing for humans. Pick out a cow. Instead of picking out a cow, you were picking out a kid.
Mm-hmm.
It's bananas to me, the whole concept.
Yeah.
But then again, so is slavery. You know what I mean? Like all of that, like the atrocities, the humanity atrocities.
Mm-hmm.
Just, and that it will, thankfully, I guess, it will never cease to amaze me. And not in a good way. It's just dumbfounding.
Michigan would ultimately receive 12,500 children, roughly a quarter of the total of children shipped west. 43 of Michigan's southern cities took these children in. Dowagiac was chosen due to Brace's tie with ministries in the city. The train ride to Michigan from New York, well, that would take 4 days. The trains were crowded and unsanitary, as you can imagine. On the first train ride, they were accompanied by only one adult. At one train stop, the adult in charge, E.P. Smith, gave 2 of the children to some people on a riverboat without even checking references. Now, there isn't much information available on the children that came to Michigan. Out of the 12,500 children that came, as of 2017, only 121 have been identified as such. Oftentimes, if a child was young enough at the time of placement, they were not even told they were adopted or how they arrived if they were. If an older child came on the train, they were often ridiculed by classmates and teased, so they wouldn't speak of it as they grew older. It was better to forget in an attempt to heal. Some adoptions were positive, and the children thrived with the security of a new loving family that really wanted them. We do have a few stories, though, and one is that of George Washington Timmons Stone. Born in New York, his parents divorced in the 1850s. Placed on a train, George was sent to Albion, Michigan, along with his brother Joseph. The pair was adopted by Simeon and Martha Stone. At the age of only 13, George enlisted in the Union Army in March of 1863. He would become the drummer boy of Company D, the 1st Michigan Sharpshooters. He was mustered out in 1865 at the age of 15 and was recognized for meritorious conduct. He would later found the city of Hoskins, Nebraska, before returning to Michigan to serve as its general auditor from 1890 to 1892. Both he and his brother would also work as merchants. Then there was J.D. Pringle. He was 13 when he was adopted in the town of Oxford. His adopted father was a doctor, and following in his footsteps, he attended the Detroit College of Medicine, becoming a doctor and surgeon. He would serve the Oxford community as their doctor for 43 years, retiring a few weeks before his death in 1938. A combination of things brought about the end of the orphan trains to Michigan and other states. First was the start of the Depression. Families couldn't afford the mouths they had to feed and clothe. They couldn't afford to take in more. Many eastern states that were shipping the children west started to get more formalized foster care systems in place. In 1895, Michigan passed laws requiring costly bonds from the agencies that were shipping the children that were to guarantee that the children would not become a burden on Michigan's taxpayers. Other states would soon follow with their own laws. While Michigan has no record of the last train to come here, it is believed that it was in 1927. Dowagiac still celebrates the orphan trains with reunions of descendants meeting there. It is believed the last orphan train rider was Alice Bernard. She was sent to Louisiana and died in 2015 at the age of 89. She rode the train there in 1919. Now, if you are doing family research and believe your family members may have been on an orphan train, Kansas has the Orphan Train Museum you can visit. It is dedicated to telling the stories of the lives of the orphans that rode the train, no matter what state they landed in. Their website has valuable contact information for researchers, and the website is www.orphantraindepot.org. And I'm going to have that in the show notes as well. Many of the organizations that started and participated in the orphan trains are still in existence today and can also provide more information upon request. Now, while this story isn't one of malice in the traditional sense of the word, as we use it on our podcast, the question we asked in our Gordy Peach episode, Season 5, Episode 4, is it malice if it is done with good intentions? Some of the children were saved and went on to lead happy and productive lives. Others ended up worse than they were before. So what do you think? If you have an orphan train rider in your family, please tell us their story in the comments. They deserve to be heard.
Is it malice if it was done in good intentions? As they say, the best intentions never really turn out so great when there's not care taken in all the other aspects. So how many of these kids, these thousands of kids that rode this train, there's probably a small percentage of them that lived a happy, healthy life.
I agree with you. It's two things. There's, here's what we can do to help these children, but there's also cleaning up the streets of New York.
Yeah, it's cleaning up the streets. It's also profiting on the backs of children because these orphanages were making money on them, and adopting them wasn't free for these people that were basically going to the cattle show and adopting children. They would have to pay a fee. So all of this was all about making money and writing off the expense of housing and feeding a child. It's kind of gross. Like, the whole thing to me is just gross. But at the same time, I'm trying to remind myself that, a percentage of these kids, it worked out for them.
Yeah.
And a percentage of these kids were genuine orphans. But there's also a large percentage of these kids that were basically stolen from their poor parents because they were poor.
Right.
Period. End of story. Because notice how many times you said if they couldn't afford to feed and house their children, then they would sign them over. No, they would get them taken away, or they would get them stolen, for Christ's sakes.
Yeah, all under the guise, hey, we're going to help you out while you're having a hard time.
Yeah.
When you're ready, come on back. Nope, they were gone. No.
A lot of this seems very, very dirty to me. The whole thing seems very dirty to me. I don't know. Maybe it's just my frame of mind in this day and age. My frame of mind it's probably more pessimistic than I would like it to be. So I don't know. All I can think about when you're telling me this whole story, I'm not thinking about the success stories. I'm really feeling like they were few and far between. I'm thinking about slimy adults profiting off the backs of selling children.
Yeah. And if there was money exchange, where did that go? And the other thing I think about, the babies, like, were these taken from mothers? Because I can see parents, people who want to be parents who can't have children, that would be an opportunity. But I can see the babies and the littlest children being taken while the others are basically sold to slavery.
Yeah.
Or not wanted at all.
Yeah. And then it reminds me of all those, this is later years, 1950s and around such, not 1910 and 1800s like you were talking about. But even up into the 1950s, like when teenagers got pregnant, they got shipped off to an asylum or, whatever they called those hospitals at the time. And they would get their baby stolen from them and adopted off.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the whole baby trade. It just makes me feel very icky. I mean, I love the idea of adoption. And I think it's a beautiful thing when we think of adoption being on the up and up. I think it's great. Adopting and fostering children, I mean, I can't say enough good things about doing it when it's done with the best intentions. But 9 times out of 10, when you talk about these old-timey stories, I just never have a good feeling about any of it. I just don't feel like any of it was on the up and up. It was all very slimy and shady, and I don't know.
Well, the thing is, there was nothing in place. You could pretty much do whatever you want.
Yeah.
There were no laws. There were no, protection of children. we got a problem. Hey, let's do this. This sounds like a great idea. Sure, Bob, let's go. Let's get it going. So, I mean, I guess if things like this didn't happen, maybe what we have in place today wouldn't exist, or it would have happened at a later time.
Yeah, no doubt. I no doubt to that. And yeah, again, with the best intentions, ultimately, we got there, I guess, because, I mean, yes, of course, there's human trafficking and all of that. But for the most part, when it comes to baby adoptions, even when it's from other countries, it's usually on the up and up nowadays. We have so many safety guards in place. I know bad crap still happens, granted, but because of all that mayhem and the adoption trains and all that, we learned, lessons learned, right?
Yeah.
So we learned from it, but I don't know, I just can't feel warm and fuzzy about any of it.
Agreed. Yeah. Now, granted, we didn't talk about children being murdered, but still, I don't feel like this is any better. It's horrible.
And I'm sure most of them were too. If they were screaming and crying all the time because their mom was alive in the hospital in New York and they were now in Texas with a bunch of weirdos that wanted to probably not be so nice to the adopted daughter. I'm sure she didn't give them any peace, where the likelihood that she would have survived that and not been abused or beaten to death for one reason or another, it's unlikely. That's all I'm saying. So the children that didn't really want to be taken and brought somewhere else, I don't think they survived.
I can't argue with that.
Because it was a more brutal world back then. Even biological children got beat to death for acting out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't feel warm and fuzzy about any of this story.
I know. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of malice here. So,
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
Now, if you enjoyed this story and would like to hear more, please give us a like, share, and subscribe. And if your preferred listening platform allows reviews, please give us one. We appreciate all of you as always and look forward to bringing you more stories of malice in the mitten. So thank you. And we will all see you back on Wednesday for Round Robin. Have a great week, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.